Meeting to order. It's the special meeting for the Corpus Christi Business and Jobs Development Corporation, also known as Type A Board. Today's Monday, August 30th. The time is now 1:33 p.m. and we'll start with roll call. Ms. Huerta.
President Scott Harris.
Present.
Robert Tamez. Diana Summers.
Present.
Leah Oliveri.
Present.
Lee Trujillo.
Present.
John Balls is absent. Oops, excuse me. Alan Wilson.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Okay, item C on the agenda is public comment. Would anybody like to make public comment on this specific agenda? Okay. Do we have any written, received any public comments, Ms. Huerta?
Oh, excuse me. No, sir, we have not.
Okay, before we hear the regular agenda item number 1, we're going to start with our presentation, which is H2. So we have a presentation on the Whataburger Field capital improvements projects. So is staff ready to give that presentation?
Yes, we are, Chairman. Neiman's going to introduce our presenter, Brady.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Board. Since the 2021 season, Major League Baseball, also known as the MLB, has operated as the new governing body overseeing minor league baseball, which is also known as the Player Development League, or PDL. The previous governing body, the National Association of Baseball, did not have any facility standards in place. With the shift in management, the MLB has created standards for minor league baseball, which is also known as the PDL standards. All 120 license holders, to include the Corpus Christi Hooks, is subject to the enhanced standards to create a more consistent workplace environment across all of the minor league teams. This standardization of facility assets also will attract longer-term commitments from the MLB teams, reduce the potential for a minor league team moving markets, and will stabilize the professional baseball's footprint for long-term community impact. To measure the compliance, the MLB has created a tiered grading scale that we attached in the presentation in your agenda. And what is required that by 2025, each of these teams will have to be in compliance, which is defined as 10 points or less. Recent renovation supported by the Type A funding has helped Whataburger Field meet some of these base requirements of this new grading scale. However, more investment is needed to bring the Corpus Christi Hooks into compliance. Therefore, the staff is asking for the Type A board to approve funding not to exceed $1,076,000 to be purposed for the improvements to Whataburger Field. Funding totaling $701,800 can be allocated by shifting the small business contracts from the Type A budget to the Type B budget for funding. And once the fiscal year 21 small business projects contracts close out, staff anticipates there will be another $200,000 to $250,000 that could be purposed for the project. Just to give you all a basic summary or review of the projects that this funding will go towards, we included a presentation that Corpus Christi Hooks General Manager Brady Ballard is going to discuss. I want to advise that in that presentation, it contains a capital budget over a 5-year period. However, that was at the request of the staff. The first year, fiscal year 22 budget is actually the improvements that are needed to meet the PDL requirements. And then the out years 2 through 5 are actually discussions that's being had between the staff and Brady regarding, well, how do we provide a better experience or a fan-facing experience in the Whataburger Field. So those are for subsequent discussions and planning. We'll stand by now and ask Mr. Brady to come run you all through the briefing.
Thank you for the opportunity to stand before you today with some of this information that Neiman alluded to. There has been a major shift in our industry, and so these new guidelines came to us in January of this year, both in the licensing agreement and the operating guidelines, which are a part of what has brought this forth. Slide, please. And so what we provided, as Neiman alluded to, of a larger scale document was just sort of a Capex history on what has taken place at Whataburger Field since its initial season in 2005, and then specifically after the 2013 year in which new ownership, that being that of the Houston Astros, took over the Corpus Christi Hook. So you can see over a number of recent years the level of investment that's been made as the facilities continue to age. And so we are now in the process of nearly completing what we call, I guess, year 17 of the facility, but season 16, as it would be after no year of 2020. Slide, please. No, yeah, no problem. I'll pause.
Does everybody have the presentation in front of them, like in paper format or?
Okay, the control room's going to look at that in just a moment,
Okay.
putting the presentation on your monitors.
I think everyone has it in
Oh, okay.
paper format. If everybody can follow along in paper format, we can continue.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, we slid to the third page there with a little bit of a Excel document graph showing the facility standards grading rubric that we are being held accountable to. This has simply isolated those areas which we would be considered in non-compliance as it would be. This is a self-audit. Major League Baseball has not gotten to all 120 facilities. They simply just this year started with a small number to begin that official grading. But we feel pretty confident that this is very reflective of where we would be. And in fact, if one were to not be, it would be Section 7, field lighting, which is one of the areas we are looking to address with this, because that grading assessment, the most recent year was 2016, in which the Hooks made another investment to bring it up to compliance. So we know that even as of 2017, we were just above the grading requirements. So specifically, you can see Section 4, a 22-point deduction, be visiting clubhouses. It's an area that is our biggest shortfall per this document, and one that would be addressed in the current request. And also Section 5, additional team facilities, which is specific to female staff facilities. There's an increased number of females who have the positions of athletic trainer, strength and conditioning, umpires, and even uniformed on-field personnel, whether that be in some cases a hitting coach or other such. And so the goal is to give them a specific locker room that is unique to them as uniform personnel, and not one that could be also used by, say, our employed business staff. This was very specific to those that are considered uniform personnel. But that would give us the total of, like we have shown, about 42 points, and it was mentioned that the improvements made previously probably knocked off another 35 to 40 points with what was done in the prior support projects. Next slide. This is specific to the field lights, and one of the big PDL requirements, that graphic that you see to the right is a illumination summary. This is how the fields are graded typically every 3 years. It was done most recently in 2016. I was not present, nor can I tell you why in 2019 it didn't occur. And then again with 2020 season cancellation, all this has drifted into new governance by Major League Baseball. So this would be a major area to be addressed by a professional lighting company. They would do the summary and survey, and they would propose a lighting system, which we have taken some steps previously to do, and we understand pretty much the cost range that we would be looking at. Slide. The next one is that visitors clubhouse renovation. The home clubhouse was one of those areas where we would have been seen some deductions, but again, that was addressed. Now to the visiting clubhouse. You see the existing floor plan there on the left-hand side, and one iteration of a redesign. We have also engaged a sport-based architectural company, and they're addressing not only Whataburger Field, but some of the other Houston-owned properties, but looking for best ideas, best practices that are impactful, help meet the PDL, and are of course, cost-efficient as well. But specifically, we do not have a manager's office at all. That is a requirement. It's a kind of common area space currently, and a part of that increased workplace environment is also specifically a dining space, an area that is separate from them sitting in a chair in front of their locker trying to eat meals. And so that also identifies this, cuts into our team store, at least the back storage area, to make room for this. So there's no expansion. It's really just a repurposing of the current footprint. That way, we're working with the exterior walls as our border on all projects. Slide, please. And then the female locker room scenario, we have auxiliary locker rooms in place. It's a great starting point because, again, we don't have to totally recreate a space to make this work. We just need to bring it into compliance because it is a auxiliary locker room now. The major elements are the larger lockers so that it matches what you would find in a clubhouse, and then adding the proper number of lavatories, sinks, and otherwise to bring that up to speed as well. And so per this 2022 request, those are the primary 3 ticket items that would fall under the requested allocation of dollars.
Thank you, sir. Real quick, all of these are regulatory-driven, they're items, they're Major League Baseball's eventually going to require you to do these upgrades, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I think the second or third page, they'd be identified in those penalty or non-compliance locations that we will be graded against for our.
And you said that it was a self-audit. Do you know when, about what time they're going to do their real inspection, come down and tell
We
you?
believe sometime next season. Only this year in probably March or April was a, call it new company identified. In previous years under the NA, a company called Gould Evans would do this every 3 years. Major League Baseball has engaged another company, and so we have not been told. But I have had, we have a facilities person up in Houston. He came down, did his own assessment, and we were very much on the same page with what we have here. And we've gauged a few questions here and there also with Major League Baseball's staff in New York.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Can you turn your microphone on? Thank you.
Yes. So if you have that in your possession, these are this low impact, high impact, these just arrived to us on Saturday. This is a couple options from the proposed sports architect company that the Astros have engaged. So we've asked them to take a look, having provided CAD drawings to them on how these potential spaces could be done so that functionality, efficiency, and cost effectiveness are all in place. And so as kind of listed, they're all conceptual at this time.
Ms. Olivari?
Hi, Brady. I just don't understand the scoring, and I don't need to necessarily, but so even if you are in compliance with a freezer and a dishwasher, you score a 1?
No, ma'am. Anything that is blocked, so a freezer, sink, if you do not have those, you would be in, call it, violation of those. So I know it's a black and white, at least in my case document. So the gray shaded area would be a non-compliant space. And with our, specific to visiting clubhouse, commissary, and dining area, we do not have any of that. So all those.
I just don't understand. Walk me back through slowly the scoring. So, you have low, medium, high on freezer and dishwasher. You don't have it.
So by default, it's 1, correct. Not specifically in the visitor's clubhouse.
So why is there a 1 in the low, medium, high? That may have been what Mr. Temez was
Sure.
getting at. I don't understand the.
Part of the grading rubric, some of these are binary, some of them are flat across the board. So your penalty for these small appliance type items is 1 across the board.
Okay.
There's added emphasis to other spaces such as just minimum square feet, that you see 300 square feet. By us not having any square feet designated to a commissary, you see that as a 5-point deduction, as opposed to if we had something but fell short of the square footage, we could be a lesser penalty.
So where you're headed in 2025 is to have a whole bunch of these things that are now on this list gone,
Yes, ma'am.
essentially.
Yes.
And you may only end up with a few of them.
Correct.
Maybe, I don't know, the internet, let's say, you may still be dinged for that a little bit.
Yes,
Is that what you're?
there's a few in the home clubhouse due to spacing. We know the home training room at minimum 400 square feet. There's nowhere else to go.
You're gonna take a ding on
Yes,
that,
we're going to
yeah.
live in perpetuity in likelihood with a few, but as a golf score goes, we're trying to get as close to par and low
Right.
as possible.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. See no further questions from the board. We Appreciate your presentation, and we'll move on to item G1. Do we have a staff presentation? Randy?
Yes, sir. Chair, board members, Randy Almaguer, Senior Management Analyst. So you just heard the presentation. You heard Neiman talk a little bit about what needs to occur. So what our proposed recommendation is canceling these 7 small business agreements that Mike presented back in July, and reallocating the $701,800 to the Whataburger field improvements. And what we'd be doing is going to type B and recommending those 7 small business agreements. So also, Neiman talked about we might have $200,000 to $250,000 on current FY21 small business projects. We'll come back in February after those close out, and we'll get a better number on where we'll be on that, and come back in February to the board to reallocate those funds that will go back to fund balance. So that concludes my presentation. I stand by for any questions.
Any questions from the board? Okay, hearing no questions, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion by Lee, second by Mr. Wilson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and our next meeting starts at 2 o'clock.
Did you have
Thank you.
comments, executive director comments, or no?
No comments.
Okay, just wanted
Sorry, I missed that.